Hello, my name is Rebecca Perhala. I am doing my presentation on the Bobo doll experiment. This is the Bandura Bobo doll experiment, and this article was sourced by McLeod 2025. Some background information. This study is from the 1960s. The study was done by Albert Bandura. It aimed to study aggression in children. This study used a doll, a Bobo doll, and had adults hit the doll. Children who saw adults hit the doll were theorized to be more aggressive. Now, another reason why this study was done was in the 1960s, parents were worried about TV having an aggressive effect on their children. Some research questions. The main question that was asked in this study was if children can learn aggressive behavior by watching adults be aggressive. Another question that was asked was whether gender had a role to play in aggression. Now, it is worth noting that girls and boys did show a difference of aggression, with boys showing more aggression. And then the next slide here is methodology. The children were between the ages of 3 and 6. They were put into separate groups. The children watched aggressive and non-aggressive adults. There were 3 groups. These groups were the aggressive group, the non-aggressive model group, and the control group. Now, was this methodology appropriate? No, the methodology was not appropriate. There were serious ethical violations in this study. One of the biggest ethical violations in the study was the fact that the children did not have informed consent before being part of this study. This study has faced a lot of criticism because of the lack of informed consent. And people also criticized this study because of how it may have taught children aggression and to act out in aggressive ways. So people who criticized this study argue that it was doing more harm than good by making non-aggressive children act aggressively. The experiment did show that children modeled the behaviors of aggressive adults. There was a follow-up experiment that showed that being rewarded for the aggressive behavior was not significant. So basically, the first part of the study did confirm that the children were more aggressive after watching adults, but if there was a reward, it was not significant. What were the challenges with the methodology? The main challenges with the methodology of this experiment was, of course, the ethical concerns that I talked about earlier. Also, people have criticized the validity of this study as it does not accurately predict or demonstrate the long-term effects of aggression. Instead, it only showed the short-term effects. Also, the study faces criticism based on the children were actually acting aggressively or simply just modeling behaviors. So, were the children actually being aggressive, or were they simply just copying what the adults were doing? Some other things to note about this study is there were 72 participants in this study, and these participants were put into the 3 separate groups that I explained earlier. And then of these groups, it was divided between boys and girls. It's also worth noting that the children were not only physically more aggressive after watching the adults be aggressive, but they were also verbally more aggressive. And lastly, I will go over the questions to pose the class. My first question: was the Bobo doll experiment ethically acceptable by today's standards? My second question: how might the use of the doll influence a child's aggression? Do you think there was a reason they chose the doll? And my last question: what would be a real-world use for this study?